Good morning, and you're very welcome to this morning's live. Now, this morning we're going to have the last in our kitchen series, which has been just fantastic for the month of February, and we're ending with lighting, how to light your kitchen, and particularly, when it is part of an open plan space with lots of different functions. It's quite difficult to try and figure out how to do that, how to create different atmospheres depending on what you're doing, different times of the day. So, the kitchen really is now more than ever the heart of the home. It's where so many of us are spending so much of our time. And we are doing everything from working, from cooking, right down to relaxing. And the kind of lighting that you need for doing all of these different activities is totally different. So today I am delighted that we're going to be joined by Willie Duggan. He is so knowledgeable. I'm sure some of you are following his Q&As as well. They're just wonderful. He's so much practical advice. So he's going to be helping us now try and figure out how to tackle this really important area of the home and get the lighting absolutely right. And it's really interesting, some of the questions that you've been sending in, and people just saying that, they're mid-build or they're mid-renovation, and with the current restrictions and stuff, it's been so difficult, so frustrating. Everything's having to happen online, and it's quite confusing really for people. So my hope doing these lives is that we can simplify even the tiniest bit, just make it all a little bit easier, and hopefully any of you planning lighting will get lots and lots of tips and advice from Willie this morning. So I see him there. I'm just going to invite him to join. Good morning, Willie.
Denise, hi. How are you
How are
doing?
you? Lovely to see you.
Yeah, same again, same again. It's great to be back and chatting to you. It's always a panic this morning. It was the same the last time. With the technical bits work, but I think everything's working now, so
Oh yeah, no, no,
all
no.
good.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah,
great.
yeah.
Well, listen, thanks so much. And I was just saying in the intro, really interesting people saying how difficult it is at the moment trying to pick things, to pick fittings, fixtures, to know where to go. There's so much information, so much inspiration online, but it's overwhelming, and especially when you can't physically go in and see things. So I know maybe if we've time at the end, you're going to do a little tour for us and show us a few bits and pieces, which would be
Yeah, well,
useful for people.
we have a kitchen behind us, so like I've seen some of the questions that have come in, and so we can certainly address some of those. Like it's really challenging for people at the moment.
Yeah,
I suppose trying to work around it, like, particularly for lots of interior elements, but particularly lighting is something you sort of need to feel as much as see, it's really, so hopefully by being able to demonstrate here a little bit, it'll help maybe articulate some of the concepts that we're talking about here this morning,
great. Yeah,
Yeah.
perfect, perfect. Well, look, I think we're just going to start with people's questions.
Yeah.
And, the best one was to get started, where to start. Just somebody not having a clue where they should start. So what's your advice if someone's looking at this as a blank canvas, ready to make a change?
Yeah, well, with lighting, we often talk about building it in layers. I actually do a CPD where it's titled Layers of Light, where I work through how you can build a lighting scheme.
Yeah.
So there's multiple elements to it, The
Mm-hmm.
kitchen is the one area, I suppose, where task lighting is important within the home, where you need good lighting on your work surfaces. So I would probably start there, just how am I getting light, good light onto my work surface,
Yeah.
and from the right location. So like you can get light onto your work surface and then you go to work on it and you're actually working in your own shadow, which
Yes,
is
and
ideal.
actually, Willie, that's what a lot of people are saying. It's a really common
Yeah.
issue. Yeah,
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 yeah. It's not about the quantity of fittings that you use. It's about where you place them so that you get
yeah.
the light where you need it. I
Hmm.
probably, so like, in terms of where to start, I probably start with your task lighting. Try to get it in the right location, but then it needs to be subtle. It's not something that you want to dominate your space. But and then the other layers, I would build up after that. So
Hmm.
obviously decorative lighting. Do I require some decorative lighting? Is there an island unit, dining table? It can be great to give focus, it
Yeah,
obviously very much ties into what you do, Denise, in terms of interior design and in terms of interior space and styling, but it also brings a focus and especially for dining and stuff like that, you know.
Definitely. Yeah, and I think with the layers of light, Willie, like that's a lovely way to describe it, because that's the critical factor. That's what's going to allow you to create ambience in the space. And, you know, particularly where we have these open plan spaces, you're going to want different lighting at different times of the day, or depending on what you're doing in the space. So, you know, by having different sources and circuits, it's going to give you more flexibility.
Completely, like, and it's again, it's just about understanding how you're going to use the space. Particularly when it's kitchen, living, dining space. You know, it is going to be probably the most complex space in the house. And it's really trying to understand, okay, you know, how's the lighting going to look when I'm, you know, working in the kitchen, or, you know, we're eating breakfast at the island unit, or maybe late in the evening if I'm in the living space, you know, relaxing by the TV, you know, and it's sort of setting up different scenes that you can play between depending on how you're using space, you know.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. Great. Well, then I suppose the next big question, and I mean, we had loads of the same question. Spotlights, should they be used? How many should be used? What is the best way to deal with spotlights? What are your views on spotlights, Willie?
Yeah, well, with spotlights, like the one area in the house where you know, I would sort of think spotlights can be used and quite often should be used would be the kitchen, because you need good lighting on your work surfaces. I would be what creates atmosphere in a space is the reflected light from the, you know, the wall surfaces and the ceiling surface and that. And spotlights can be quite, you know, oppressive, you know, if they're used incorrectly. So there are lots of other areas in the house that you can get a lot nicer effects with maybe table and floor lamps, pendants, hidden lighting and that type of thing. But certainly in the kitchen, you know, where you need good lighting over the work surface, I would use spotlights. But it's not, I see so many mistakes made with spotlights, and I suppose it's such a new technology, LED, and people are only sort of gaining understanding in it, and it's actually evolving all the time. So every year we're getting better quality, you know, better outputs and that type of thing. So like I suppose in terms of spotlights, I would think it's about choosing the right quality of spotlight, and about, you know, like, and if you pick a good quality spotlight, you need awful lot less. So you don't need to pepper a ceiling in spotlights. I would just use them where they're required, but choose one with a good output, good quality in terms of, and like I could go into these in more detail. It depends on the level of detail you want to go into here this morning.
Well, what are some of the brands? Because that was another question, somebody asking, you know, what is a good brand? Or so how does somebody know that they're getting a good quality spotlight?
Yeah, I suppose in terms of quality, and there's a couple of little technical pieces, and it's not overly, you know, it's just, you know, 2 or 3 sort of questions that you just need to ask. So it's brightness, right? How bright is my spotlight now? So you have your old halogens that we would have all had in our kitchen, which were those, you know, those the old spotlights before LED arrived. There's replacement bulbs for those, but the light output tends to be a lot less, and the quality in terms of, when I talk quality, I suppose 2 things. One is color temperature, which is how cold or warm. Now, to describe that, it's how yellow or maybe closer to blue the light source is. So like daylight changes color temperature throughout the day. So in the morning you're going to get a much warmer light, just like your evening sun. You know, it's that much more warmer, much more relaxing, and the bluer light tends to be in the middle of the day. So that's color temperature. So I would be checking color temperature, and I would say for residential, you'd be looking at maybe they're talking degrees Kelvin, so it's 2,700 to 3,000. That gives you a warm light. I think it's much more comfortable in interior spaces. And color rendering is the second thing. So that's how well your colors are brought out. So how natural they are. So the closer to 100 you are, the better your colors are brought out. So daylight again is 100. You know, and if you pick a poor quality color rendering, like let's say 75 or something, your reds are all going to appear a little bit flat. You know, everything appears a little bit flat and not quite as you know, it doesn't quite bounce. So you know, you could spend so much on, you know, getting your interior finishes and your colors correct.
Yeah,
And
then the
then you
lighting
put
lets you
poor quality
down.
light,
Yeah,
you put
yeah,
poor quality lighting on it, and you just don't see it as
yeah.
you should, you know.
Well, it's really
Um,
interesting because we did
yeah.
get one question: what should they do? Is it warm or cool that they need to go for to overcome a grayish tinge? They're saying in their room. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I would say warmer color light. You know,
yeah,
the 2,700 to 3,000. Actually, you could actually see our demonstration area behind me. You can see the two different light colors. I'll show you that a little bit later.
great.
But yeah, like the warmer color light. I would say check color rendering. So if you're above 90, it's really good. You know. But certainly the first thing is color temperature. Just pick a warmer color light. I think. Um, People don't even realize sometimes, you know, that there is different colors of white light, and you can often see in people's space where they might, you know, you might replace a bulb and all of a sudden, God, that looks different than the rest of the bulbs I have in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
space.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
it's written on a bulb packet, so if you just check it, it's like it says 2,700 or 3,000 Kelvin warm white. So I would be checking that and make sure at least it's consistent. And second of all, I would definitely go for warmer color light in residential, because it's all about, you know, having a bit more of a relaxing sort of feel to the space, you know.
No, well,
You
it
know.
feels less clinical. Like it really
Well, this is
does.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And LED, and I suppose it's all about, everything's become LED now. Maybe 4 or 5 years ago, you would have used different light sources for different things, but everything is LED. But LED would typically be a bluer light source, and they've done numerous things, different coatings to improve the warmth of the lighting. But you would see where people are maybe not aware of it, or just maybe working off guidance, maybe from an electrician or something, where you can end up with kitchens that are peppered with lots of downlights, because the replacement bulbs haven't the same light output as maybe the old halogens are replacing. The electrician, to make up for it, puts lots of them into the space.
Okay.
And then, you know, so you can end up with too many and maybe the wrong color temperature, and all of a sudden your space just feels a bit like, maybe a little bit oppressive, maybe a little bit
It's too much.
cynical, as you say. Yeah.
Well, I said this
So
before, but what my brother calls them is the emergency lighting. You know, because it just feels like, oh my
it's like,
God, it's
well,
so
this
bright.
is it.
Yeah. So
A lot of the emergency lighting will probably be the cooler color temperature. Anyway, so
That's it.
he's right.
And
He's right.
no, and also, Willie, the other issue that I've seen in kitchens is lots of different color temperatures. So particularly where, for example, you might have under cabinet lighting, and then the overhead lighting might be warm. The under cabinet or LED lighting strips might be cold, and it all just looks a little bit off kilter, you know. So that's something to think about for people as well,
No,
because you
definitely.
might be getting them from different suppliers and things.
I was just about to say that, because what quite can happen maybe is that the kitchen supplier is, you know, just supplies, well, look, I'll put under counter lighting included or whatever, and then all of a sudden that's arriving at 4,000 Kelvin, and the rest of your lighting is in a much warmer color temperature. And like certainly if there's that disjoint, it can, if there's that sort of disconnect between the different color temperatures, it can look that little bit disjointed. And so again, I suppose these are questions that people can ask, you know, ask if somebody else, you know, somebody's supplying your kitchen and you're choosing lighting elsewhere, you know, just double check what color temperature, like they should, you know, it's pretty standard, you know, 3,000, 4,000, you know, warm or cool. You just need to specify, or you just need to ask, you know. But it's when people when you don't have that awareness, I suppose it's difficult, you know.
Oh, well, it is. Yeah, people just don't know that there are differences. It's not something you would. I mean, look, when you're doing up your kitchen, there are so many things to think about that I suppose the color of the lighting is, you know, it's not something that people consider at all. But it is so important. Yeah, it's so because you spend hours choosing the color of the kitchen, and then you put the wrong lighting in, and it'll never look like how you'd hope it would, you know. So no, it is really, really, really important. Brilliant.
And as I said, there's only those 2 or 3 things, you know, the color temperature, check that, color rendering, check it, and then you just ask those questions, you know.
Okay. Fantastic. And then there was a question. Oh yeah, so brands. Are there any brands people should look out for the recessed downlights?
Yeah, well, we work with Prolect and Area now. They're both European brands. We tend to work with European brands because they're, well, we've just found the quality better. Just the consistency and quality. We've worked with Prolect for 30 years. I think my father got involved, but with them at the very start. Walter, who set up the company, was an electrician, and I think my dad. They just had similar values, I think. But we found them fantastic. The quality is really good in terms of the quality of the fitting, quality of production, and the sort of backup, just really flexible and good to deal with in terms of service. So yeah, that I find Prolect excellent. I'd stand over them and supply them any day because it's you need somebody you trust and you need a quality that will last. So I would say Prolect. We find Area very good as well. So I would say Prolect Lighting, Area Lighting, two good brands.
Two good brands. Okay, that's fantastic, brilliant, wonderful. And then okay, so if we move on to north-facing kitchens or kitchens without a lot of natural light. So what is your advice there? Should you try and replicate natural light or daylight or you were telling me about some fabulous new technologies that.
Yeah, there was. Well, we were talking last week, about obviously the technology moves all the time. So there's different sort of technologies are available or capability available in LED now. So you have like warm dimming and dynamic white. Now, so these are types of LED where you can actually change the color temperature. So with warm dimming, it starts off at maybe. It starts off still pretty warm, maybe 3000, but it gets much, much warmer as you dim it. So it actually works quite well. And I think can work quite well in kitchens so that if you're, let's say, for different scenes, when you're working in your kitchen, you have it at a brighter level, not quite as warm, but then you can dim it right down. It gets much warmer, much more atmospheric. So you have that background lighting when you're in your living space. Dynamic white is changes from very cool to warm. So it does the full, warm dimming starts from warmish and then just gets really warm, whereas dynamic white goes the full spectrum, just like daylight. I think to try and for the north facing room like that, trying to replicate daylight, I just think it doesn't work in an interior space because your daylight is very, very cold in the middle of the day and it just won't. It's so bright, it's very difficult to replicate. My suggestions for dark spaces, it's all about lighting surfaces, It's really, it's reflected light is what you see in a space. And it's the light that you reflect off the surfaces. So I would be thinking of trying to do what you can to light your surfaces within that space, and that will make it feel brighter. So if you can maybe uplight onto your ceiling, or there's lots you can do with hidden lighting now. There's like LED tape, which is sort of like this, it comes in 5-meter rolls, so it's just a tape with an adhesive. But you can sort of recess that at the edge of ceilings, and you don't actually see the tape, but you see the light source, and what you're doing is you're lighting surfaces. So there's some really good things you can do with hidden lighting to light surfaces. And I think for rooms that are dark, like the likes of north facing rooms, it's sort of trying to do something like that, or using maybe a suspended fitting that would give you a lot of light onto your ceiling.
Onto the ceiling,
yeah, particularly with lower ceilings. If you can get light onto your ceiling, it just feels a bit more spacious, So my tips will be to try and get some light onto your wall surfaces. If you in a north facing room like that, you try to pepper it in downlights, you end up with a dark ceiling and just quite an oppressive feel. But if you can uplight onto your ceiling, it's going to feel that much more space.
Everything, to take the eye off. That's really interesting. And I suppose, because we would often say, people think about painting a dark room and they go light, and it can feel really clinical. And it's for that very reason, whereas they'd be much better off going with, like you say, surfaces like a kitchen countertop that's sort of bright and let that reflect the light and let the light bounce around that way. But I love the idea of uplighting the ceiling rather than having the lights shining down onto the ground. It's great.
Well, that's what I like. There's a few questions that we've seen on downlights, and we see it a lot ourselves. Like there's a lot of there's a bit of more feedback saying, look, can I design my space without downlights? And I think that the reason is because they've been so overused, I suppose, throughout spaces, throughout residential designs, and it's nearly like, well, it's just as easy. Let's put 5 downlights down that corridor, and let's put 4 downlights in that room. But what you end up with is all you can see is the light source. You know, it ends up and it's lighting straight down to the floor, and it's not the floor doesn't impact on how you see the space. It's a light onto your walls and your ceiling. So if you had a floor lamp or a table lamp, it's going to give you a lot more comfortable light because it just gets soft light up onto your ceilings and floor and walls, you know. So I think that's why there is a bit more of a pushback on downlights, which I agree with. In lots of spaces you don't need them. But it's a lot softer getting light onto your ceiling.
Yeah, no, lovely. And actually it brings me to another question. Somebody saying that they are planning, just trying to find it here. 3 sort of feature pendants over their island, and then they've another pendant over their dining table, and they're actually saying, do they need spotlights? Now, I suppose they need something around the kitchen. Well, I suppose if they've under cabinet lighting elsewhere. Yeah, well, this is it.
It sort of all depends a little bit, you know, on the kitchen layout and that type of thing. You know, you don't want the space to feel dark when you arrive into it. But if you've got good pendant lighting over your island unit, that would give you good lighting there. And then if you can sort of have very good under counter lighting, it should give you a lot of the functional light you need within the space. So quite often you can get away without or minimizing your downlights or without them, you know. You see it, and I know we chatted, and there may be another question on vaulted ceilings. Like, it's difficult to use downlights where you have a vaulted ceiling.
Well, actually, this person does. Yeah, they have a monopitch roof. So there is some sort of slope. Yeah.
Well, I'd be saying with a sort of space like that, like if it's a vaulted or a sort of a pitched roof where it's getting that bit higher, I'd nearly uplight that using LED tape, because again, it sort of emphasizes the height. It's the real feature of the space. It can give you a little bit of reflective general lighting as well. And I think it's a nicer space like that if you can use your pendants. Good, I suppose the key then, if you're relying on your under counter. See, the problem is, like, do you have cabinets? You know, if you have cabinets that cover all the counter, then you probably can get away without downlights. But if you don't, you'll need to put something on your wall, or you need to put some additional downlights.
Over the counter space,
Over the counter space, yes, just get your lighting. So I'd be saying uplight that ceiling, use your pendants, put really good lighting underneath your counter, which is just double checking the color temperature, color rendering of the LED tape you're putting in. And that should cover a lot of your lighting in your kitchen, you know, for the task. You know? Yeah.
Brilliant. And the wall lights are a great idea. And actually, we got lots of questions about vaulted ceilings. So what are your tips for that in general, Willie, if people have, you know, unconventional ceilings that they need to tackle?
Yeah, like, I think if you can, I think to uplight those ceilings is great, you know, like, and that's just simple coffer detail where, again, you sort of build a sort of an L-shaped coffer on the side of the either side of the vaulted ceiling. And you place some LED tape in profile in that, and then that uplights the ceiling. It's beautiful to really highlight that height. And again, because you can't see the light source, I'm sort of big into, like, if it's the reflected light that you see, and if you can't see the light source, it's brilliant, because it's much softer way of lighting. So I would say, firstly, look to uplight if you can. You can even locate lighting at the top of your kitchen units, and so there's a few different options. I would say then obviously you need, as we just talked about, good lighting onto your work surfaces. So you have your pendant lighting, under counter type lighting, and again, if you don't have sort of, I'm sort of against putting downlights in vaulted ceilings. You can do that and use adjustable downlights.
It's hard to get it right though.
Yeah, because again, the light source or the actual downlight becomes a feature, you know, and it becomes like all these dots in your ceiling, and you create this beautiful vaulted space, and you just start to pepper it with dots. It sort of, it doesn't make sense to me. So I would use, maybe sometimes you can end up with, let's say, a cabinet unit, a window, and a cabinet unit, which makes sense. You have a great view from your kitchen while you're working. but you have no lighting over your sink or whatever it is in front of the window. So then maybe some sort of, there is a lot of options in terms of LED fittings now. So there's lots of options on wall lights, and you could put a couple of neat wall lights at higher level there to give you some light onto your surface. So those will be some thoughts. Every kitchen's a little bit different, but certainly with vaulted, I try to uplight, keep away from downlights in your ceiling. And there's numerous then options in terms of trying to get your path lighting. I shared on one of the images, there's these new track systems which are really, really clever.
Yes, and I'm sorry, Willie, I seem to have lost, I don't know, Instagram keeps changing its interface, so my way of sharing photos has disappeared somehow, but I'll share them in stories afterwards. So
you're grand.
You're grand. Do it now. I'll have to look it up afterwards, but but it
is
different.
It is a challenge of trying to, technology and apps are changing all the time.
I don't know why they just don't leave it, because it's I have the hang of it now. I'll have to figure it out again.
Yeah, no, it's fine. But there is sort of a track sounds, very sort of commercial maybe. You use tracks in the likes of retail stores and stuff like that. So, but there's again, as technology changes all the time, there's these new track systems that again, we can share it on our stories as well. But it's sort of, so you come down at one point with a PowerPoint, then you have a sort of a linear system that runs throughout the space that you can uplight from. So it's got like this illuminated surface on the top and the bottom. So you can uplight, you can downlight, and you can place little spots on it. So it just gives you flexibility where you can't, let's say, recess into a ceiling or something like that. It gives you flexibility. Again, in instances which I would see quite often where you might only have one PowerPoint in your kitchen. I think one of my student flats in Dublin when I was in college, you have like three spots on the ceiling.
That's it. Yeah.
And you're just constantly in your own shadow. But if you're sort of in a space where you only have that one PowerPoint, that you can come off that point onto a track that then can run throughout the space and give you the flexibility to get lighting within your space where you need it, but not actually have to, go through a big rewiring sort of job on your space.
Brilliant. Yeah. So just a fairly straightforward way to solve that problem. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Amazing. And then, Willie, just with the open plan spaces, so just I suppose different functions, jeepers. So many functions now, there's really too many to mention now with all of us being at home all the time. But, lots of people asking, how do they create different ambiences, different atmosphere at different times of the day so that the whole space still functions? But, and can you do that? Can you retrofit some of this stuff, or do you have to start from scratch?
Yeah, well, there's definitely, in terms of retrofitting and starting from scratch, there's an awful lot you can do now, and there's an awful lot in terms of, the type of product you choose, whether it's, table and floor lamps are very easy to change in and out. And then there's lots of different sort of systems maybe available. A little bit like the track system I talked to you about there, where you don't have to really rewire the space, but just sort of install a fitting that will give you flexibility. I suppose in terms of that open plan kitchen, living, dining, and trying to get, it's to sort of maybe elaborating a little bit more on what I was talking about the layers of light, for the different scenes and trying to get the lighting right for each of those. I would say, as we said, like the task lighting, I would design first, then look at your decorative lighting. I would also then look at a sort of an accent lighting or maybe background lighting, so that a little bit of a consideration that let's say, if I'm, in the living space and we're watching TV, how does the kitchen look? Like if the kitchen, everything is switched off and it's just a really dark space, it doesn't feel that comfortable, So again, as we talked about with vaulted ceilings and that, like having some sort of background lighting, maybe uplighting onto the ceiling, or you can put lighting at skirting level in the kitchen that works really, really well.
Yes, and you had a lovely image, which I'll share afterwards of that. That's gorgeous.
Yeah. And it's just soft lighting in the background. So when you're and if it's the right color temperature and it's dimmed down, it just adds to the space. So now we're in this relaxing scene. We're watching TV. There's a little bit of background lighting in the kitchen, and we put maybe our table and floor lamps on. So it's really trying to picture And I think lighting is great for that, and obviously it's key in interior design. But it's really trying to understand how you're using the space. How is it going to look when I'm watching TV? What am I going to switch on when I'm working in the kitchen? So I'm going to have my under counter lights on. I'm going to maybe have my pendants over my island on, and I might have the table lamp back in the living space on, so that doesn't look like a dark space. So one thing to flag with that is 5 amp sockets, which are great in terms of flexibility because they give you the ability to switch them on and off from the wall switch, so you don't have to keep maybe walking through the space and switching on and off,
turning on different lamps.
Yeah.
And then there's Bluetooth, Willie. You were mentioning that to me as well.
Yeah. I suppose when you're talking about flexibility in terms of without having to rewire a space. This is Kasambi Bluetooth lighting. I suppose arrived about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, and it's taken off really quite quickly. And like it could be 2 years ago now. It's time flies so quick, but it most manufacturers will supply Kasambi now, and so what it's a control technology. So basically, instead of let's say a lot of your control technologies for you'd have to include an extra cable in the past. So if you're having a fitting that was going to be dimmed, you'd send maybe 2 cables to that fitting. Now all you need is a power cable. So if you already have your fittings, power cables at certain locations, you can buy a Kasambi fitting, and then it connects to your phone or to a tablet, or you can get wall switches that are Kasambi, so you don't necessarily have to, it's not ideal that you control it from your phone. Like if somebody arrives in and they haven't got the app, it's not very practical. They have to go looking for your iPad or something. But if you have, you can have Kasambi wall switches and that. So basically they all connect by Bluetooth to this app, and then it gives you a huge amount of flexibility then. So it gives you the sort of flexibility you would have got from lighting control systems in the past, right? You can set up scenes. So like those scenes that we talked about designing for the space, you can set them up so you can have your late evening relaxing scene, and you can have your working in the kitchen scene type of thing. So it's very clever, and we've been playing around with it in our space here, and we've supplied a bit of it probably over the last year, and it's very intuitive to set up, and it's working very well. So it's again it's like computers, as I said before. Lighting just changes very, very quickly.
Yeah, it's great. It's really good. Yeah. And Willie, just a question that's come in there: would you recommend to put dimmers in an open plan kitchen, living, dining area? Yeah,
I would. I think definitely, because it gives you as I said, there's lots of that. It's probably the most complex space, and it is the most complex space in the house, your kitchen, living, dining space, and that ability to be able to dim there is great. Again, for the different use of the space, if you're so it's the one area where I would put in that little bit extra, and like you see, some people are just mad, maybe very, very much into technology, and you can end up with lighting control systems throughout the house. But I don't necessarily see in a bedroom what great advantage that can bring you. But I would certainly see in the kitchen, living, dining room, it does bring a really good functionality. So dimming, definitely, I would think about that in those spaces.
And again, that's an ezy thing to retrofit, isn't it? You can change. Yeah.
Well, with the Kasambi now, again, like in the past, you probably would have had to rewire, but with Kasambi now, and there were issues when LED came in first with, if your dimmer switch didn't work,
not all of them did.
You can end up with flashing and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
But with Kasambi now, it should be relatively simple. Again, you need to ask for Kasambi, but you'd sort of purchase your new fitting, or and you just need to install a Kasambi wall switch, but you don't need to rewire the space as such, So
okay.
I think you can actually get Kasambi attachments that will fit on existing fittings.
Existing
as
fittings,
well.
that's right.
So if you have an existing fitting, you can get a Kasambi node that can be installed in that fitting and then connected to
it's
the
like
wall
replacing
system.
it. Yeah, it's really straightforward.
Yeah.
Actually, the question is there a danger that overly elaborate systems data house? But that's the beauty of these systems. It's not like the smart home technology of, you know, maybe 15,
Oh, there's a
20
date.
years ago. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
all Bluetooth now. So, you know, it's
Yes. Yeah.
very, very
No.
simple and cost effective and, you know, easy
Yeah,
to
no,
update and change.
it is so simple, and I would have agreed with that person in the past. You know, you see people spend huge amounts of money on huge amounts of wiring and stuff like that. But because this is so simple, you know, no, it should. I think, you know, technology will always change and will always move forward. Anything that we buy today in 5 years' time, there's going to be sort of newer technologies for it. But I think it's fact that it's Bluetooth. It's incredibly adaptable and flexible, you know. And these, they sort of a little bit like our phones. They, you know, the app upgrades, you know, continuously type of thing, you know. So there's updates and that type of thing, you know.
Great. Okay, brilliant. And actually, I see a great question in there from somebody, and it ties in with another lady. So the question that came in yesterday was somebody looking to place, what should they place over an island and a hob? They don't have an extractor, so possibly they have a downdraft extractor in their hob. They want something that's easy to keep clean. And then somebody else saying, you know, they see that there's a lot of trend for nice glass fittings over islands and hobs. And are they easy to clean? What are your recommendations if you're concerned about maintenance
About
and
sort
cleaning?
of maintenance and dirt. Yeah, like
over a hob, you know, if you're cooking and that the light is there.
Yeah. There's no extractor as well, so yeah. I would think in the kitchen, certainly over a hob or those type of locations, definitely glass or metal or something like that. Obviously, keep away from the likes of wood veneer, material shade, or anything like that in those spaces. Yeah. But I would say probably glass and even metal would probably be okay there. But your best shot, and there's a huge amount again in terms of styles and options really available at the moment, you know.
Yeah, brilliant. Great. Well, Willie, I think we've covered a lot of everything. Do you want to show us the space then? Would that be?
Yeah, I'll show you a bit of space.
Good idea. I'm dying to have a look in there. So yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Right now. Yeah, I haven't done this before.
That's okay. It's
let's
great.
see how it works.
Jeepers, it's a beautiful space. And just while you're walking there, just to say that you do offer consultancy services for people, because, you know, just again on the point of people really struggling at the moment, they can't go in and talk to people, they can't see things. So you do offer a fabulous range of services for people.
Yeah, well, it's sort of become really central to what we do. It's the consultancy side of the business, and it's really. Like as I said, as we've just talked about, you know, lighting changes so quickly, and there's so much available nowadays, and it's just really to understand. Like you can, as I said, again with your likes of your kitchen, that you can vastly reduce the amount of fittings that you install, but to put them into a bit better quality and actually probably save a little bit of money, but get a better design. And it's about thinking about it first. And I suppose you see a lot of mistakes and a lot of, you know, but by you know, people sort of nearly pigeonhole themselves, but by just maybe lack of understanding or, again, so many decisions to make. So, we do a range of services. So we sort of tailor it, whether it's a 1 hour consult, and we're doing online at the moment, I think, like you guys and probably most of the country. And they've worked very, very well, to be honest. You know, it's a whole new functionality. You get your video at the end. But we can do a design package where we'll work with our clients to produce your sort of layout, full lighting design layout, or we can take it from start to finish. We can brief your electrician, you know, snag your installation. So it depends really on, you know, what people's input they're looking for, you know.
Sure, and their budget and whatever, but at least you have that fabulous range. Yeah.
And we do a lot like yourself. We've embraced social media, so I do my own Q&As every Wednesday, and
you do, which honestly, no, they're brilliant, and anybody watching should definitely tune in because they're absolutely fabulous. So
well, if we can educate, I think if we can educate, we can increase awareness. We can and help people. I think it's the key of key of it all,
That's
really.
fantastic, especially
yeah,
now when it's really hard to
yeah,
know. You know, everybody feels like they're
yeah,
doing everything by themselves. So yeah, that's great.
yeah,
Okay, so
yeah,
show us,
yeah.
Willie. I'm dying to see.
Okay, yeah.
Let's
Well,
see.
no, just a couple of things. I said, look, well, the kitchen's here. I may as well just talk about a couple of the concepts that come up in the questions, I suppose. There was
Yeah,
one question that we had, which was, where do I place my downlights? You know, in terms of trying to
yes,
get,
yeah,
I don't even see, there's two downlights here. Now, these are recessed
yeah.
trimless downlights.
Mm-hmm.
But where do I place those to get good lighting onto my work surfaces? So I would place them probably as close as you can to your maybe 6 inches back or so from your cabinets, higher level cabinets,
Cabinet.
so that they're actually over the surface. Now I have a little bit of shadow here, as you can see, but we don't
Yeah,
actually have our under counter lighting on at the moment. But it's a combination of the lighting underneath your cabinet units here,
mm-hmm.
and obviously your lighting from above from your downlights, you know. But
Mm-hmm.
if I located these downlights probably, you know, another foot or 2 feet back, which typically they can be maybe more at this location here, you end up then working in your shadow as you try to work on
Yeah,
your work
yeah,
surface. So the
and
key is that
yeah,
they're as close to being
there.
directly over your work surface as you can, you know.
Brilliant. That's great
Yeah.
advice, because the temptation is to put it in that kind of, especially if you've an island and a run of units, that you'd like that central
Yeah, the light
circulation
down the
space.
center. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But then,
So
yeah,
it,
as
it,
you
it,
say,
it
that the light is behind you.
Yeah, so that's what tends to happen quite a lot, is that people will place it between the island and the kitchen units themselves, and they'll center it there, which
Mm.
sort of, you know, in lots of ways makes a lot of sense. But when it comes to practically working on your work surfaces, then you start shadowing yourself.
Yeah.
It's not so good. But that's why the
Right.
lighting underneath your cabinet units are very important. And again, checking with your kitchen supplier if they're supplying it in terms of color temperatures and that type of thing. But if you get good lighting neatly installed here, again, it's really beneficial for you know, the
Great.
practical work,
Okay.
which is what a kitchen is about as well, you know.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
the other thing to flag here, we have some hidden lighting in the shelving units behind us. Again, that's LED tape.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it can act as background lighting. You see, you can do an awful lot. You can build it into shelving units. You know, you can build like these. You can put it at skirting level, which we are going to install here, but not at the moment. But it's not there at the moment. But you can put it at skirting level. You can put it above your units, or you can build coffers and that type of thing to uplight
Yeah.
the
Lovely.
lights above the ceiling. So there's an awful lot you can do with that
Yeah.
as well.
It's great.
So
And what's lovely about that is that's almost your ambient lighting, isn't it? In the evening, so you might turn
that's your
everything
ambient
else off,
light.
but just have that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really
So as
lovely.
we're
Yeah.
yeah. So as we're talking about, if you're in your if you're trying to understand the scenes that you're going to have within your maybe your open plan space,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the lights of this can act as part of that. So when you're in your living room, when you're relaxing, you just leave this on in the background, and it creates a really nice effect, you know.
Lovely.
Um, there was another question that I had seen, or we get quite often, is, you know, if I'm stuck with one cable or in a certain location, maybe it's not over my dining table, or maybe I only have one
Mm-hmm.
cable, but I want to hang 3 pendants over my island unit or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That can be a problem. So if I can show this here, what we have here is 2 pendants coming from
Oh
the
yeah.
one wiring point above us. So these
Mm-hmm.
are systems, actually, they're cluster systems. So you could have 15 or 20 pendants coming from this one power point. And what we've got is 2 hooks here. So the 2 pendants hang off the one power point using hooks. So it's flexible in terms of it can change and move around. So we can,
Lovely.
you know,
Yeah.
if you wanted to, you could change your lighting, you know, over time in your room. But it
Yeah.
does give you the flexibility if let's say your PowerPoint isn't in the right location for your dining table or something like that.
Yes. Yeah.
You can use a
Yeah.
hook. It becomes a feature, but also gives you the flexibility to maybe not have to rewire the space again, you know.
Wonderful. And
Um,
you've just reminded me of one question, Willie, that it was about, you know, what to do if things are off center in your kitchen. So again, the placement, trying to light it evenly if perhaps a pendant light is at one end, and so something like that would work really well.
yeah,
If you've only got one light source.
yeah, so I hope I can get my video right here, but yeah, that's the idea. The likes of cluster systems like this, and like you're not curtailed to these pendants. You can more or less there's a you know, use any pendant, to be honest, you know, but It gives you the ability, if your wiring point is in the right location, if it's off center, it doesn't fit. Or even if, let's say, your table, and you quite often get this, look, I'm looking to place my table here, so I'm going to put my wiring point here, but what happens if I decide to change that table location in the future or something like that? Yeah. You can just, basically it's a hook in the ceiling, so you can actually move that hook. So it gives you that flexibility, you know, so.
Great.
Yeah. But I was going to, well, obviously we've got Pendant over dining unit here. The only thing I was going to say about these is quite often we'll use pendants over island units like this, but it's the decoration and it's the style that we're bringing to the space. But it's also that focus, you know, particularly over the dining table in the evenings. You know, when everything else, like if you're talking about your scenes, you would leave your pendant on your dining table. You'd probably leave that little bit of background lighting that maybe we have here as well, and dim everything else down. But it becomes a much more sort of intimate scene then, you know. So it's the focus that the pendant brings, I think, it creates the intimacy really, as well as everything else.
Gorgeous,
so, I know it's typically used, but it's typically used for a reason, I suppose, is the thing.
It works. Yeah,
it works. Yeah. So here is just a bit on color temperature. So what we've got here is sort of a testing area here. We put up and down different downlights in this location here, but I'll just show these two. These are both white light, believe it or not. Because they're beside each other, you can really see the difference, you know. Right behind me here, you're looking at 3000 Kelvin. So that's the warmer color temperature.
Wow.
And here
Willie,
you're looking at 4000.
And can I ask you, is the wall color the same?
One color is the same, yeah. Both white, but both painted white.
It's incredible. You know? So,
yeah,
that really is
it's incredible. Yeah. It's only when you see it, you know. And like I can describe it I can describe it as I just did there. You can look at it in the catalog, but yeah, it's the same. It's the same. Same wall color, but just different shades of white light, you know.
Wow.
So I would always say that it's the warmer white light that you should go for your interior lighting as such. You know?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So that's really it, Denise, in terms of
fantastic.
Those were the few items I thought that could work for obviously kitchen lighting and that, you know.
No, it's great, and great to be able to see it in reality, and great to get a glimpse of the showroom, Willie, when we can't visit you at the moment. So, and some amazing stuff going on behind you. So, yeah.
I was actually we were going to do it in this room today, but we're trying to get our acoustics right in there at the moment. But it's really coming together. We've partnered with quite a lot of really good Irish companies, so we've created this design space. Really, it's an inspiration space as such. And so we've partnered with like Thin Line, that's Manning Bespoke, which are a local bespoke joinery company. Created a lot of what we have in our consult room there. But it's exciting, and we sort of used the lockdown to try and to try and evolve our space really, you know, and use the opportunity for that. But we like everybody, I think we all want. The sooner we can all get back to
start bringing people into it.
The better.
Oh, it's a beautiful space. It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Absolutely gorgeous.
Thanks very much. Yeah. So
brilliant. Well, Willie, thank you so much. I look forward to being able to come and visit it and walk around. But in the meantime, thank you so much for all that helpful advice. I hope we answered everybody's questions, and I promise I will share some of those beautiful images you sent me.
Okay, great. Yeah. And look, we're here again. If anybody has any further questions, we love to engage with social media. Check us out on our Q&A as well. And thanks for the opportunity, Denise. It's always great to chat.
My pleasure. No, listen, thank you. Thanks, Willie. Well, thanks everybody.
Okay.
Have a great weekend.
See you. Cheers.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye now.
Bye. Bye.